Good evening, everyone, and welcome to This Week from Rockdale. And as usual, I am your host, Larry Cox, and I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on this week's edition of the show. We have a special guest this evening. We have Mr. Alex MacDonald, who will be joining me in a second. We're going to be talking about some tax initiatives that are on this year's ballot. And we'll also be doing a sort of a wrap up with Biolab. I think all the major activity of this is going to be sort of done and over. Now it's going to be the lawsuit stuff and all that. And, we'll do some hit and miss on it. But I think this will be the last week, the major story. So let's go ahead and bring Alex MacDonald on tonight. Hey, Alex.
What's up, Larry?
Man, you know how it is, Al. Just finishing up a wild 3 weeks here in Rockdale County with Biolab and all that nonsense, and
Yes, sir.
about getting arrested and all that stuff. So it is what it is. I'm excited for it to be over and me possibly not going to jail.
Right. Yeah. I annoyed a few people yesterday, apparently. I don't know if you saw what I posted about the rally.
I did see what you posted, and when we're doing our Biolab wrap up stuff, we're going to talk about that. We might as well, right?
Yeah, I absolutely am, because I'm going to, well, you know what? We'll save it for then. But
yeah.
Thanks for having me, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
So, and that, we're going to definitely get into all that. But I want to go first. Let me go over here and look at who's joining us. Say hi to you guys, because without you guys, there's no use coming on here every week. There really isn't. I mean,
That's right.
there's no use to come on here and talk to myself. Even though I would probably enjoy the conversation, there's no use for me to do it. So, but let me say here. So I'd like to say, Mary Boysworth, good evening and thanks for joining. Cheryl Moulton, thanks for joining us tonight. CJ Lester, thanks for joining the show. Lisa Clancaster, great to have you here tonight. Danielle Munoz from the land of Tim Waltz, great to have you here tonight, Danielle. Luca Russo, great for you to be here. Clayton Norwig, nice to have you, Clayton. William Campbell, great to have you here tonight, William Campbell. Dan Burks, great to have you. George Kelichek, the taxpayer, great to have you here. Marie Withers, great to have you. Charlotte Gellert, howdy, howdy. Kelly Hunter, great to have you. Sherilyn Ben Garcia, great to have you. Joseph Allgood and Stephen Mayo, great to have you guys joining the show tonight. And Corliss Turner popped in as I'm getting ready to turn the show over to Alex here for a few words, and we're going to talk about these ballot initiatives. A lot of people are confused about them. I know the first week of voting has occurred, but we're still going to have a lot of people that have still yet to vote, and they want to hear some people's opinions. And that's what we're going to let people know. It's Alex and I's opinions on these ballot initiatives. You still have to make your own decision about if these things are right for you or you think they benefit you. Al, why don't you take it over here about these ballot initiatives for a minute?
I mean, we're starting with this now, or are we going to say hi to folks? Oh, we already did.
I already did say hi to
All right,
folks.
well, let's talk. All right, let's talk about these things. I don't have them up on the screen. Do you want me to?
Yeah, put them up. That'd be a good
All right,
idea.
bear
You want
with
me
me
to?
here a second. Let me do this so that people don't see what's going on behind the scenes. Let me drag this into. Oh, that didn't work. Sorry. Didn't realize I thought we were just going to talk about them. Didn't know we were going to have them up, but bear with me. Can I zoom in on these things? That's the question. Yeah, I can't really see these, Larry.
Okay. Well, why don't you just read them, Al?
All right, let's do that.
Read the first one, and it's about 11.
easy.
Yeah, just read it.
All right, so proposed constitutional amendments. These are ballot initiatives that you'll get the option. Well, yeah, you get the option to vote on them, I guess, on November 5th or during early voting, whatever is your preference. Number one, provides for a general law statewide homestead exemption that may differentiate among political subdivisions. And it's worded shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by general law for a statewide homestead exemption that serves to limit increases in the assessed value of homesteads, but which any county, consolidated government, municipality, or local school system may opt out of upon the completion of certain procedures. That's number one, Larry. You want to talk about it or just read them all and then go
Let's
back?
talk about it. So,
All right.
so I think I've attended a couple of different events where they had experts come in and talk about these.
Mhm.
And my thought process was this. What they told me was, let me swing this back down. What they told us at these meetings was this, that basically if you're a homeowner, this was going to benefit you because it was going to freeze the value of your properties and from this year's assessment. Your property values will be frozen at what this year's assessment is. And it won't go up again unless something significant happens. You resell it or whatever. It's got to be that type of event. So if you're a homeowner and you qualify for the exemption, it's going to freeze your property taxes. And they actually showed some numbers on a graph what it would look like over the next few years if the current system was in place versus that system. And there was significant savings. So in my opinion, if you are a homeowner, it benefits you to vote yes for this.
I agree. Especially, and we have particular circumstances here in Rockdale as well because we already have our host, right? This
Yes.
would be what are they calling this? Is there a fancy acronym for this?
No, there's not. You would have the host, and then
We'd
there
have the
would
host
be,
and then the
and then there would
statewide
be, and it would be
exemption.
a law. You would also be able to enable another penny, which would be a local
option sales tax.
Yes.
So yeah, we could, assuming our local officials do the right thing and handle the money correctly, we could end up in a very good position here with the host, this new, I guess, statewide homestead, and potentially a local option sales tax. We could have some great ways to offset our tax burden. Now, again, notice I didn't say great ways to save money because none of these really save you money because they're all funded by a sales tax. So we're still paying the tax. It's just refunded back to us at the end of the year.
We would
as
pay
a
the
rebate.
penny, right, Al?
Yes. Well, in
sales.
potentially three pennies with our existing host and this, it will be 2 pennies.
Well, we pay one to host and we would pay one to lost. We only pay one to host.
That's what I'm saying. 2 pennies with host and this statewide thing, potentially 3 if we also
we
have
only
a local
pay one
option.
penny. We only pay 1 penny to host.
That's exactly what I said.
We would not pay 3 cents. It would be 2 cents.
It
1
would
penny
be-
to host, 1 penny to lost.
It would be 1 penny to host
Yes.
and 1 penny to this statewide. Which are you calling this statewide thing the local option sales tax?
That's what it would be. You have to. They have to do local legislation to enact it.
I thought you were talking about a third one that they want.
No. This is the second one. The law.
Okay. So yeah,
and it's not automatic. It actually has to be introduced and passed.
Yeah, and of course the penny we pay for Splost as well.
Yes.
And the penny we pay for the e-host.
Yes.
Or the school host, whatever the hell it's called.
Yes. So, but you're right, Alex, and the lost actually is a mandatory 100% of what they collect minus the 1% that the state would keep. So all monies that the county would get from the lost have to go to valor reduction, tax reduction.
Yeah.
And I think we squeeze the county and make them use 100% of the host.
Do the same for host.
Do the same thing. And that would actually most likely take of the county portion to most citizens to zero.
Yeah, I think it would. For most citizens, it would go to, if not zero, close to it. Of course, you'd still have your school portion, but a savings is a savings. You could look at it as saving half on your local and half on your school, 100% on your local or 100% on school. Look at it however you want. It's a saving.
Corliss said something I want to school her a little bit. So, yes, Corliss, that they would take it up by that amount, but then they also adjust it to make it even out with an exemption. And then the amount they're able to raise your taxes would be the rate of inflation. So it's a complicated formula, the way they're able to do this. So and that's why it's difficult.
Yeah, and the other thing they could do, of course, is just simply raise the millage rate.
Which they're going to, right? Don't get me wrong, they are going to, but I think then again, it's political pressure to minimize how much they raise it because they want to get reelected. We all know that, Al. They want to get reelected, so they're gonna be very cautious of how much they raise that millage rate.
Right.
So I mean, and this is the thing. What I think a lot of people have to realize: there is no piece of legislation that is perfect. It's the best you can get sometimes that helps you. You know what I mean? And Janice said something here like
more like a user tax if you increase the sales tax.
It's exactly.
Consumption tax.
Well, and this is the thing about it. From listening to the people that got elected this term, I don't feel that Janice or Tawanya would vote to opt out. That's just my personal opinion, right? Janice is on here, and if she wants to weigh in, she can. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you that I have discussed this with some, because I'm going to go on the school board, and I'm going to tell you my vote is, I'm going to be a non-opt-out person. And if there's 3 other people on the board who agree with me, we won't even have hearings moving forward because you only have to have hearings if you intend to opt out. Yes. So if there's not a majority of any of these boards, if the county, the city, or the Board of Education, if there's not a majority of individuals who want to opt out, you won't even have hearings in January. I mean, it's a very short time period. You have to do this by March 1st.
Right.
You have to have 3 hearings and a vote.
I don't know why the school board would choose to opt out because they get their money regardless.
But they take the hit on the exemption now.
Are we certain about that?
Yes, 100%. Okay. Yeah, they're still subject to the exemption, yes.
So they're subject to, yeah, of course. I guess they would be subject to the rate freeze, to the valuation freeze. Here's my only concern. Yes, it freezes, and I still haven't had a proper answer for this from anybody. 10 years ago, you want to freeze my property values at 10 years ago's value. Fantastic. Now they want to freeze it at 2024 or 2025's valuation, which is extraordinarily high. What does the law say about reassessing our home values when the market dips? I mean, how big of a hurry do they need to be in to reassess?
The legislation says they have to every 3 years. That it must be.
So if let's say they assess it
goes to 24. So they would have to reassess in 27.
Right, so we could be okay. So let's say they set the value.
Yeah,
follow me here. I don't know when
the values are set in 24.
I'm not trying to be pedantic.
The legislation says the 24 values are the assessed value.
So they've set 24 values. Let's say in January of 25, everything goes to shit and the whole market crashes and the actual fair market value of your home is half what it is today. We're stuck with these inflated values for 3 more years because of this
it would depend on the last time they evaluate. Let's just say they evaluated your house 2 years ago. Then they've got to evaluate your house again the following year. So these houses are on a cycle. You know what I mean?
Okay. Listen, again, let's not be pedantic. They set them for 2024. In January of 2025, the housing market crashes. We're then stuck with these values.
Well, you were
until
going to be stuck with those
2027.
values for 25 anyway, Alex, because they're not going to reassess them. So you,
Yeah, it's, to me, it's a risk, but it is what it is. I think they should have. I think they should have put something in there to protect the to protect the homeowners, to force them to I think more.
well, and Corliss just put something in about capping the millage rate, and I'm just going to be honest with you, Al, that's never going to pass. It'll never pass up in the dome capping the millage rate. I mean, that's not even to start that. You're talking about a piece of legislation that you would be fighting over that does not have a chance to ever pass. So you've got to actually clearly think about what you want to do and do something you can win, and not a fantasy, because that's a fantasy. Just being real. And I don't want to be mean or anything, but I'm going to be real about that. And then Clayton mentioned about that being popular at the Gold Dome, this piece of legislation. It was somewhat popular at the Gold Dome. They had to do a lot of compromising, and they had to put the opt-in, the opt-out in the piece of legislation before they could get it to go through the House or the Senate, because they had to do a lot of compromise to get this legislation through.
Yeah, and here's the thing: even if they do, listen, they're going to raise millage rates regardless. This county has a spending addiction, right? Look at the budget they're proposing this time around. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's an additional $20 million over last year's budget. They're going to have to raise the millage rate at some point anyway.
And you can read you want us to read Janice's answer, Al? I think it's appropriate. Yeah, she said, since I have not seen all of the information regarding financials for the county, I cannot commit to an answer. Based on what I know right now, I would like to stay in and not opt out, but evaluating all of the options will be critically important. So, and I think right now her thought process is to not opt out, and I think that's
gotcha.
At the end of the day, I think that's what needs to happen, right? I mean, I think taxpayers in Rockdale County need whatever relief they can get, and this legislation does offer relief to homeowners.
Yeah, but yeah, if the opposition to it is they're going to raise the millage rate, we're in that position already. At least this way, you have some protection, and then you're in a more of a position of power. Because here's the thing, they are going to be less inclined to raise the millage rate because, listen, we've seen how this Board of Commissioners act, right? They reassess our homes, they take the added value. It's obviously a tax increase, but they get to sit there and say, well, we didn't raise your taxes, we didn't raise the millage rate.
They took this away, didn't they? They took that excuse away from them.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to raise our taxes regardless. That's what this county does. They are addicted to spending, but if we can put them in a position where they have to do it through a millage rate increase, it puts us in a much better position.
And it also lets voters know what's really going on. Voters, then they don't get to use this. We don't have the Board of Commission blaming the Board of Education, saying, well, you've got 82%, when that's not true. That right. the Board of Commission has got an offset. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. John says it's not an excuse, it's a blatant lie. I agree it is. I call them on it every single year when they do, because they do it every year. Well, we're not raising the millage rate. You can't call it a tax increase. And yet in the press statements they send out, they have to by law call it a tax increase. But at their public meetings,
I'm going to just Corliss, put a comment. I'm just going to Corliss. I've had this conversation with you many times. You're never going to see my way, and you're never going to see my explanation. You believe what you want. You vote how you want. If you don't like it, then vote no. And it's as simple as that. You and I don't agree on this issue, and we're never going to. So just go ahead and vote no. I'm going to vote yes because I think it makes sense. And you're stuck on the
Well,
millage
here's
rate thing, and I'm not stuck on that.
let me give an example. Corliss. Yes, they're going to be capped at the inflation rate for increases. And if they continue with their current spending habits, they may have to raise the millage rate. But let me ask you this. What happens when property values go down? The housing market's
Eventually.
going to crash. It's going to, right? Where our Oz Nesbitt has more than doubled in 8 years, more than doubled the budget of Rockdale County, hasn't even considered the possibility that the housing market might crash and take away half of their revenue right there. We're actually in a worse position then, Corliss. No, it's not that they have to raise millage rates. This actually puts us in a more, I think, a better position for them to have to cut spending rather than take the gamble, the political suicide gamble of raising the millage rate. They may actually have to cut some spending.
And Alex, I agree with that too. I think this legislation puts political pressure on them. I think it's going to force them to cut budgets and be more fiscally sound when they are raising taxes. That's what I believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yes. Look, I know that the threat of them raising the millage rate is there, but it's always there. It's there every single year. It's been there as long as I've lived in as long as I've lived in America. The threat of having the millage rate raised has always existed. This at least gives us a measure of power when it comes to those increases. Plus, I think it puts the county in a position where they're going to have to reevaluate spending because it's not going to be a blank checkbook for them. You know, have our county over leveraged themselves? Have they put us effectively in a position where we can't afford to do what we're doing moving forward? Yes, absolutely. I think the answer is cutting spending, not raising taxes. But you know what? The people that get elected are going to have to answer that question. That's where we have the power. It's the people.
Well, and and I talked to several people, Alex, that in the legislature that actually, with this legislation, and that was exactly their point. And that's why a lot of these local entities wanted the option to opt out because they don't want that political pressure. That's why they want to opt out, Alex, because they still want to be able to hide behind the I'm not raising your taxes, your property values went up.
Exactly. And then when our property values crash, which they are going to, let's be realistic here. These inflated home values aren't going to last. Home values are going to get cut in half at some point in the near term future. Is our budget going to stay at $140 million a year? If it is, they're going to have to double the millage rate to collect the same amount of revenue. Well, we know it's not feasible.
Right, it's not feasible.
Right? It's simply not feasible. There's going to have to be major austerity measures put in place. I think this just speeds up that process. Not of the crash, but of the austerity measures, the reevaluation of spending. I think this is a win-win.
And you mentioned it earlier too, Alex. Bill Campbell just says, "Wait till we get built for the tax house," and the admin building. It's not the courthouse; it's the admin building because they're just doing a remodel on the courthouse. The admin, so the thing we had to build because it wasn't safe, we're just remodeling, right? So. So there's what the thing is that's the noose around the county's neck right now is this ridiculous admin building. It is. It truly is the noose. That's the thing that will bankrupt Rockdale County. It's the admin building.
Right. But think about this. Let's say the housing market does take a dip, and we still have the host, and we have this loss. And consumer spending is going to take a dip, obviously, but people are going to continue to spend money. We may end up at a point where we end up with a surplus of revenue, Larry, to offset taxes, and we may have enough money to offset even a portion of the school taxes.
Catherine said I called it the tax house by mistake, and it is the tax. It is the tax
It is
house.
the tax
Catherine,
house.
It was a Freudian
Yeah.
slip, but it was an honest mistake. I mean, it was a reality. That
Yeah.
is the tax house that's going to take us down. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Let's talk
Yes.
about number 2, shall we? Provides for a statewide Georgia tax court. And the measure reads, shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended so as to provide for the Georgia tax court to be vested with the judicial power of the state and to have venue, judges, and jurisdiction concurrent with superior courts. So here's what this means. Currently, tax cases go in front of a superior court judge. This would take those cases from the superior court and put them into a newly established tax court with theoretically judges qualified in those issues.
It would be tax attorneys who were now be tax judges.
Okay. So again, theoretically, subject matter experts rather than, I'm not saying all superior court judges aren't tax experts. Some of them probably are, but the likelihood of you getting a judge that's well-versed in the tax code is probably pretty slim at the moment. So that's what number 2 would do. Larry, though, right before the show mentioned that these would be appointed judges and not elected. Now, I got to tell you, Larry, when it comes to issues like this, I might be a little more comfortable with somebody appointing an expert than allowing the public to elect somebody that, you never know what you're going to get, right? So I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing for me. What do you think about that, having them appointed rather than elected?
With me, I'm always concerned about bureaucracy and people being bureaucrats in charge and not elected, right? So I didn't realize initially that it was appointed. I'm 50-50 on it, Al. I mean, I think if it would expedite tax case issues, this is I've talked to a few people in the judiciary, and they believe it would be a good idea because a lot of the cases that come before the Superior Court, and it's a very busy court, and it's hard to get on the docket. So, and George just mentioned it's a statewide. All these are statewide items, actually. All 3 of these. But with me, when me talking to people who are the experts and they think it's a good idea, I'm sort of going to lean toward the opinion of some experts I know who think it will be a good thing for citizens and streamline cases so they can be resolved quicker.
Yeah. Charlotte asks what kind of tax cases. Any tax case that isn't federal, yes. Charlotte. So that would include tax fraud, tax avoidance, I assume, capital gains issues, non-federal. So basically any tax issues that aren't federal.
So that's my
understanding. I mean, I'm assuming they could handle federal cases if they needed to, but generally the IRS likes to do that in their own federal courts.
So I think we're good with that.
Property tax appeals, I doubt it. Those are handled by the.
I think you can appeal those to the Superior Court now, Alex. So those appeals that would go to the court, that they would go to this tax court
then. Okay. So yeah, I mean, again, Charlotte, probably worth looking into that. But yeah, I guess most likely if you're appealing to a higher court, then
and our friend John Bowers, and I expect nothing less of John to oppose this to the very end, and I respect John immensely.
Yeah. Now the question, of course, is, or at least my question, does this mean that every county is going to have an appointed
it would go on these districts they have, these judicial districts. Rockdale County is unique to where they are defined within its own judicial district, right? So I think Newton and Walton County are one district, right? So I think it would be their district, their district that they are in.
Okay, so prob maybe a district.
Well, the
court
superior
rather
courts are
than
like
a
that. I mean, it's
local
what
court.
judicial district they're in, right? So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't have. Listen, I'm not a lawbreaker. I don't really have much
and I
experience with the courts. If actually, I have one experience with the courts, and that was Judge Beal.
well, I mean, like I said, and I don't have tax issues either, so it is what it is. So, but let's move on to number 3.
Yeah. All right, number 3. Raises amount of tangible personal property tax exemption from $7,500 to $20,000, and it reads, "Do you approve the act that increase it? Do you approve the act? That's odd. Do you approve the act that increases an exemption from property tax for all tangible personal property from $7,500 to $20,000? Yes or no?" Do we know if this is also if this covers ad valorem on vehicles?
Vehicles are exempt from because you pay one time. You pay when you purchase the car now.
Oh, that's right. Nowadays, you
You
pay
pay
it
it.
up
You pay
front,
it
don't you?
first time, and then
Yes.
after that, all you pay is your tag fee.
Yeah, that's right.
I think there are a
Um,
couple of things that are
now,
exempt from it because I did see.
now, would this be an automatic $20,000 exemption on your
It would not
property
be
value?
your property. These are person.
Well, then it's not all tangible
They,
personal
well,
property, is
they
it?
define that differently. Like my camper that I own, it's taxed separately than my property tax. I get a separate bill for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
A separate line item. So it's more or less talking about boats, uh, and trailers and those type things, right?
Yeah, it's a shame it's not immediately 20 grand off your property value, though, to go along with everything else. But hey, why would it be?
And
Why
Rob
would it
Cordoro
be?
answered this. He said Walton and Newton are in their own judicial Alcovey judicial circuit. Rockdale is within its own, and it would be your and like I said, a lot of the southern counties, Al, because of the population, that you've got a bunch of counties a lot of times that are a judicial district.
Right. So this one, listen, I have nothing that would benefit from this, but anything that keeps money in the pockets of the people that earned it, I'm all about that. So yeah, I would I would vote yes on this one, Larry.
Yeah, I would too. I'm for tax
We earned
exemptions.
it.
I mean, if you can pay less, whether you're a business or not, John. You know what I mean? Business person. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Because I do both. I
Yeah.
do business
And
and person. You know what I mean?
yeah, and me, I don't care if the government gets short on money. It doesn't matter to me one bit. I don't need I don't depend on the government to fund my life and my lifestyle. So it doesn't matter to me if they're short on money, whether it's from our home values being capped or whether it's from personal tangible property getting a tax break. Doesn't matter to me if the government comes up a little bit short. That's the government's problem, and they should have to adjust their budget and cut their spending to accommodate that. And if we want that to happen, we got to keep the pressure up at the ballot box. That's my position on this. So yeah, whatever takes money out of their hands and keeps it in our pockets, I'm all about
So
that.
there's our brief explanation, and you got our opinions on these issues, but ultimately it's your decision. These ballot initiatives are your decision. Do a little of your own research and decide on your own what you want to do, because it's your decision how you vote.
Yep, that's all you can do. All you can do. Just flipping through the rest of this ballot.
Exactly.
Just seeing what's up for grabs. Hey, look at that. Gary Washington's unopposed.
Everybody's unopposed.
Yeah, Doreen Carter's unopposed. Rhonda. Angela Moore.
No, you're looking all that. Everybody's
Right.
unopposed.
Good God.
Everybody's
really
unopposed,
are.
Alex. That when we talk about the primary election, in Rockdale County being the general election. We're not lying.
Well, I mean, House District 92 and 93, 91, 43,
Well,
they're unopposed
but
as well. I
there's
expect the local
70%
Rockdale
Democrat
offices.
districts, Alex.
Yeah.
I mean, even there's 70 to
Yeah.
80% districts, right? There's no use for somebody in another party wasting the money to qualify. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's where it comes down to it, right? So,
Well, I mean,
but
I
they
don't know.
had,
I think we bucked that
yeah,
trend,
but
didn't we?
well, in the primary is the general election. There's where you gear your people up. You run in the primary to get new people in. Angela had competition, right? I think several of them had competitors. I think Rhonda might not have this time, but they usually do have primary competition, and they don't have anything in the general election. So the primary is the real election in Rockdale County every year.
Sure. Well, well, I mean, there have been Republican challengers up until, well, I think Ewell Anderson, I think, was it's ironic that Ewell was the Republican challenger, but I think he was the last. No, there was who was it that ran for sheriff?
Jeff ran as a
Jeff
Democrat.
Burris, Republican, ran
Democrat.
for sheriff.
He did.
Did
He ran in the primary. Somebody wants to know what Tucker was running for. Tucker ran unsuccessfully for the Board of Education this time, but he got a lot of votes. He ran for a state court judge a few years ago, and he got a lot of votes then too. Tucker's not certain if he's running for something again in 2 years. Tucker and I will make that decision then.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of unchallenged.
But Alex,
seats.
that just proves how important the primary election is in Rockdale County.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Because there's where you change leadership
Absolutely.
in Rockdale County. You change leadership in Rockdale County in the primary. If you want to enact change in Rockdale County, you do it at the that level.
Yep.
Well, I've just found out that Tucker will be getting several votes for some things because John is going to write him in. Well, I'm going to be honest about something. I always write Tucker in too. So Tucker might have got a few votes also the other day, John. So it is what it is.
All right.
Well, Al, let's move on. Let's move on to Biolab. Yep. Okay. Yes. So Thursday, the county had a press conference, and they announced that the operations that the county had been involved in over at the Biolab were complete. County's portion was done. They were turning it back over to Biolab, and it had been a successful cleanup in the opinion of the county, the EPA, EPD, and Biolab. So that was the report that we got Thursday evening, that enough was enough, and it would be business as usual in Rockdale County.
Yeah. Now, Oz Nesbitt did say he can't speak to what the previous administrations did, but this administration has had enough, damn it, and it's back to business for Rockdale. Never mind that Oz Nesbitt was the previous 16 years of administrations, but hey, this man loves to gaslight the community, so take it for what it's worth. And his little protege's been at that as well. We'll talk about that in a minute.
It's very interesting too. We've got, and I shared that with you a little bit ago, Channel 11 came out today and notified us that the county will be filing a lawsuit tomorrow against Biolab to have them removed from the county as a nuisance company. And I've also heard that they are going to be asking for compensation.
Yeah, for them, I'm sure. I guess we'll see. I shouldn't jump the gun. Maybe they're going to be requesting a compensation fund to be set up for citizens that have been victimized by this. I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Well, Bill Campbell puts on here just now, Al, that they're scheduled to hold a press conference at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. The county attorney and the commissioners to discuss what they intend on doing.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. Yeah. I guess they've come up with a number because he was asked Thursday what that number was. He said that they haven't even started to think about it. I guess between Thursday and even though, strangely enough, Larry, this is the announcement that was supposed to have been made last Monday. But they didn't, and they whatever. I mean, it is, again, it's just gaslighting by the county. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. But this was supposed to have been announced last Monday. Thursday, Oz Nesbitt, in one of the questions says, "Oh, I have no idea what that number is. We haven't even considered it." And now it turns out they're bringing a lawsuit they're going to announce tomorrow. So I'm guessing they've come up with a number.
Alex, let's be real. That the last 3 weeks cost me and you, the taxpayers of Rockdale County. That was a lot of money we spent the last 3 weeks with the fire services, EMS.
Yeah,
I mean,
bunch.
all the resources the county had to put to that. That was a lot of money.
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, millions. It's going to be millions and millions of
Renee
dollars.
Simpson makes, you and I mentioned this, Alex, so I'm glad somebody else mentioned it. Renee Simpson. In my personal opinion, I'm sure the county is following this lawsuit as a means to keep citizens from coming after the county.
Well, I didn't say that. I wholeheartedly agree, but I didn't say it. Yeah. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. Listen, Oz Nesbitt has been on this board for 16 years. He said there have been 3 fires in the last 20 years. I can't speak to the past. I can't speak for what previous boards did. Well, yeah, you can, brother.
Well, Alex, I'm gonna say there have been 4 fires since 2004. 3 of those fires have been since 2018. Can I ask you a question? Who's been the chairman since 2018?
Oh gosh, who is that guy? Former used car salesman. What the fuck is his name? Yeah.
So
obviously.
he has been the chairman
along
of the 3 most recent fires at BioLab. And I know there's been more than that, but those are 3 that required evacuation. Okay.
He oversaw the sale of the purchase
Oversaw
of the
the
property.
direct, the development authority and their stuff and everything, right? So it's interesting, right? You get this stuff, right? So you can't make this stuff up, right? You can't make it up. So we got this. They told us business as usual. Then us businesses on Black Lawn and Olympic went to try to go to our businesses. And if we were denied access to our businesses, Alex, even when we're told it's business as normal.
Yeah, this was Thursday. This was about 2 hours after the press conference. We were told Rockdale's back to business. Oz made it very clear that that included the private businesses that had been shut down. No more than 2 hours after, somebody, it was Larry, goes to get back to business, and he's stopped by a Newton County deputy and told, no.
And then I was a little mouthy. I'm not going to say I wasn't. I've been a little mouthy a lot about this situation because it's impacted me personally, right? So I left and I sent my operator, because I called and they told me, no, you can get in. I sent my operations manager over, and lo and behold, wouldn't let him in and told him if I came back, they were going to arrest me. So,
yeah. It's
ridiculous.
Now, listen, I can't talk about much of it because it was off the record. There were parts of this. I had a conversation with the sheriff, and most of it was off the record. Parts of it, I told him I said, listen, I'm going to ask you questions now that are absolutely on the record. One of them was about a risk assessment, Larry. And I asked the sheriff, have you seen an official risk assessment that would justify shutting down these businesses? And the answer was no, that he had not seen an official risk assessment. So I'm not sure what data was used. That's not to say there isn't one, but I'm not sure what data was used and in what official capacity it was used to justify shutting down these businesses for what, almost 3 weeks. And look, I don't want to say I don't want to be in a position where I'm defending the response to this this disaster, because I think the response to it has been horrific. But let's just put it this way. The communication between departments has not been very good. Let's put it that way. And there are decisions being made by certain parties, and those decisions either aren't getting relayed to a third party or are getting relayed days later to that third party. And so there's been a definite delay in implementing policy. Is what I can say, because as soon as you spoke to the sheriff, you were given access, right? Well, somebody called.
They said I was, and then we went back, and they still wouldn't give us access. It took 3 different times to get access. Then all they did was move it down the road a little bit and blocked us again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then somebody said clients won't be able to get in. But
it didn't really get worked out, Alex. I had to call 911 on the police. It didn't get worked out till I raised total hell. They didn't want to work it out. They really did not want to accommodate us. They didn't want to let us in. The only reason we got in is I wouldn't take no for an answer. I'm not going to let them off the hook, because it was bullshit.
Sure,
I'm just calling it right. It's bullshit.
I'm not saying.
I'm not letting them off the hook.
But when did you get full access?
Probably about noon on Tuesday, after I refused to move and called 911 and said, I'm not going any damn where. You're going to move this illegal barricade.
Wait,
Friday.
Noon on when? This happened Thursday, noon on Friday. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not saying you should let anybody.
No, I mean, and you can't talk about it being lack of communication after Thursday evening, because there was only one entity involved in the communication.
I agree. After
there was
Thursday
only one entity in the communication, and let me tell you, Alex, from my experience, the last 3 weeks of being there on ground zero trying to deal with this, BioLab was running that whole operation. Them and their recovery response team. That was who was running that operation. That was
all said as of that press conference Thursday. All's made it clear the operations have been turned over to BioLab and their contractors.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you, being over there before that press conference several times and doing things, it was the BioLab contractors who were actually running the show the whole time over there.
Yeah, when I've been over there and seen these manned checkpoints, and it's been people in yellow vests. Occasionally there's a deputy there, but I've seen mostly people in yellow vests. I haven't spoken to them. I haven't asked them, but I assume they either BioLab.
Well, when you ask them who they are, they won't tell you their name.
Those checkpoints,
and they won't tell you who they work for, and they won't tell you the name of their company.
Yeah, so I would say if you're a business. And well, I mean, first of all, if you were denied any access to your buildings, BioLab is culpable. But especially after this press conference on Thursday, if you were denied access to your building, that is BioLab prohibiting commerce.
A BioLab employee or contractor actually told me Friday morning the reason I couldn't get access was that was an active fire scene, and I told him no, it's not. I said, it's not active. I said, yesterday's press conference, the county said this is no longer an active incident. That was their words.
Yeah.
And that the county had removed themselves from it. It was no longer an active incident. And that this was a BioLab issue moving forward. And I said, you've got no authority to be doing what you're doing. And, I mean, if they wanted to argue and not whatever, and I mean, there were several other business owners. They said, "Well, you guys can go through, but no customers can come." And one person even
Right.
said, "I'm a customer. I want to go do business." And the blockade people said, "Well, you can't go down there. We don't care." And when the
Mhm.
police officer actually told me his exact words, "Well, your business doesn't matter in the bigger scheme of things because we're protecting the public." I said, "What are you protecting the public from?" This is after I called the response and got the officer responding to the 911 call. I said, this has been
That's
declared
interesting.
over. So what you said my business doesn't matter? It's point blank what he said, Alex. Then I asked him this.
Yeah. Well, maybe somebody should remind them that defund the
Well, this is
police is
what he
still a
asked. Then this is
thing.
what he said. I said, could you please have the sheriff call me? And he said, well, that's my boss. I can't have my boss call you. My operations guy was standing beside me. I said, I'm his boss. If you ask him to call, to tell him you'd like me to call, I said, I'll call. So you're saying you can't
Yeah.
relay a message to the sheriff to give me a call? And he told me, no, I cannot. And I'm relaying that same
Mhm.
message on this show right now. Sheriff Levitt, my number is 678 524 6159. I would greatly like to discuss this biolab issue with you. I don't think I should have to make an appointment with you. I've made this perfectly clear in the community. You're an elected official. You've got the message. You need to call me because people that were working for you threatened to arrest me. You need to discuss this matter with me. That's my opinion. Throw it out there. I don't give a shit.
I mean, listen, Eric's an elected official. If I think elected officials should speak to their constituents, especially when they're having an issue like this. I think that's a given. You have
No,
his
I do
number
not.
though, right? Oh,
No,
okay.
I do
I
not
thought
have
you
his number.
did because that's what I do.
No, I do not
I
have his
reach
number.
out to the sheriff to, and he always
Right. I mean,
responds.
but
So,
but
but
it was
yeah,
very disturbing when I asked the deputy, could he please have the sheriff contact me, and he told me no.
yeah, I think that's
And when he told me my
At
business,
the very least, you say
and
I'll
then when he
relay the
says your
message.
business doesn't really matter,
Hmm.
that's the problem.
Yeah,
That's
that's a problem.
that's ridiculous. It's being very disrespectful to members of the
Yeah,
community. That's not protecting, sir.
yeah,
That's being arrogant with a badge and gun.
yeah, yeah. That's a problem. There's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that. Especially when they say they're focusing on community policing. That is not community policing right
No,
there.
that's community.
There's a
That's
lot of
community
things. There's a
bullying.
lot of Yeah, there's a lot of things going on with this thing though, Larry. That and they did something yesterday that really bothered me, that really pissed me off. You were there. You know what it was. We went to this shut down biolab rally on Saturday. Larry, you were one of the speakers there. You were invited to speak. And I get there and it's right outside 901. It's on the steps there. They have a little podium set up. They got a couple of little speakers ready for the speakers to come up. We're all hanging and milling around. And somebody gets on. I'll tell you, it was if at Walker gets on the mic and says we'll be starting up in 10 minutes. So everybody get ready. And a bunch of signs started getting brought out. Let me jump back a minute. I want to show people some stuff. Let me show you this. This was the original. Oh, that's not it. Tell me if you can see that. Hopefully you can. This is the original flyer that was sent out for this. It was a peaceful protest to shut down BioLab. Organized by Stroud. I don't know who Stroud is, Larry.
A lady in Conyers.
Okay. Organized by Stroud in partnership with Community Action Now. We'll talk about them in a minute. This was the flyer that went out October 19th, 3 p.m., 901 Main Street. So I thought, yeah, okay, I'll go along. I'll take a look at this. And we're there hanging out. We're chatting. The event starts to kick off and all these signs start getting brought out. And this is one of the signs, shut down BioLab. with a little blurb at the bottom. Those are those signs. You can see them right at the bottom there, leaned up against the podium where that person is speaking. Here's another angle of it. There's one of the event organizers in the green shirt speaking, and there's the shutdown biolab signs at the front. I've done a mock-up of these signs because you can see what it says. It's the PSL. It's the Party for Socialism and Liberation, Larry. These are what I'm going to call the official signs that were at this event, because they were the ones that were brought out by the organizers. And I will establish that, by the way, because there's one little lady trying to gaslight the community into saying that these were not organized signs. There were, of course, they were members of the community there, obviously, with their own signs, right? They had these handmade signs. You don't see any political slogans on here. You don't see any political party affiliation on here. All you see is people, holding their handmade signs. We also saw people out there holding these Party for Socialism and Liberation signs because, they were laying there and people were able to pick them up. They didn't only have the shutdown biolab. They had some political message signs there. Money for disaster relief, not genocide and war. Okay, fair play. End capitalism before it ends us and the planet. All right, fair enough. Here's the thing. The Party for Socialism and Liberation, the PSL, these are those people right here. This is the PSL. This is their website. And if you go to their platform, it says the Party for Socialism and Liberation exists to carry out the struggle for socialism inside the United States, the center of world capitalism and imperialism. You jump down here to 21st century. As Marxists in the United States, our starting point is an assessment of the world situation, they say, Larry. These are Marxists. These are self-avowed Marxists, an ideology that murdered over 100 million people in the 20th century. Putting those banners by your podium is no different than putting swastikas leaned up against your podium. It's the exact same imagery. It's an ideology that, well, in this case, murdered 10 times more people than the National Socialist Party of Germany, or as we like to refer to them, the Nazi Party, the other murderous socialist regime of the 20th century. You can say whatever you want. You can stand there and preach about community coming together, about peace and unity. But when you're doing it behind a swastika, the words lose all meaning. When you're doing it behind the label of socialism and Marxism in the United States, the words lose all meaning. So I left because my principles don't allow me to be at a Socialist Party Marxist rally. They simply don't. I left. I refused to be there. And I went and posted a video. And that video got some responses. And I want to take a look at some of those responses, because one of those responses came from the organizer, or one of the organizers, Ifat Walker. And again, I will establish this in a second. Interesting that you choose to create division, she says, with the gaslighting starting immediately. These are the signs created by the organizer. Please stop posting lies, Alex. So I responded, Ifat, is this not your podium with the signs propped up against it, front and center? Are you saying that this didn't actually happen? She said, no, actually, it's not my podium. You seem to have a problem with facts. Well, here's the thing, Ifat. Community Action Now, let's not forget that it was Community Action Now that organized this event with Stroud. Ifat Walker established Community Action Now in 2014. It's her organization. She talks about it here, the exciting work they're doing. And I have no doubt that they do good work, Larry. I have no doubt that Community Action Now do good work. But they allowed this to happen at an event that shouldn't be politicized, It shouldn't be party driven. None of the community members who went there were carrying party political signs. They were carrying homemade signs that spoke of the issue. They didn't speak about Marxism. They didn't speak about socialism. They were saying, let's shut down Biolab because they're concerned about the community. Well, Ifat there is implying that that's not her podium. It is your podium, Ifat. You organize this. Now, listen, I expect a bit of gaslighting from Oz Nesbitt's protege. This is why I would never endorse Ifat Walker for election. She's way too close to Oz Nesbitt. They have a very close intertwined relationship. I don't trust her. And this causes me to trust her even less. She started with the gaslighting immediately. No, that's not my podium. You're sowing division. If that is your podium, this was your event. You allowed those signs. You were, in fact, this is, if I go to this picture, that is, oh, I got to hide that one. Wrong one. The lady in the jeans and the purple top and the leopard skin hat, that's Ifat Walker back there, writing notes, organizing, if you will, while this event's going on. To say that that's not her podium is simply a lie. She organized this event. She took ownership of that podium. She allowed those signs to be there. No difference. And I promise you this, if we would have shown up, or if anybody would have shown up with signs with a different political ideology on them, they would have immediately told us to leave. I created a mock-up of a shut down Biolab MAGA sign. If we'd have shown up with those and leaned up against the podium, the organizers would have moved them immediately. Now, she seems to say that the official signs were the ones that she highlighted in her little picture there, right? She said that these are the official signs. Here's the thing. This is from Paul Glaze, and I hope this is true, and credit to Paul for posting this. I was one of the people who was supporting Stroud and Community Action Now in organizing this event. I hear you, and in the future I will insist that there are no signs with any kind of party affiliation. That's my fault, and I'm sorry. I do know these folks because they came out to support a community in Gainesville, Georgia that was dealing with an industrial tragedy in 2021 where I lived at the time. They're basically super eager young 20-year-olds that push too hard but are well-intentioned. They're not secret agents for anything. They came to bring the same system and support the shutdown Biolab call. I told them it needed to be nonpartisan, and they stuck to that, but I didn't think about the signs. Again, that's my fault. And you know what? Fair play to him for making that clear. But Ifat didn't make that clear. In fact, Ifat immediately went on the defensive, told me I was lying when I'm not. Ifat Walker, you organized this event. That was your podium. You allowed those signs to go there. You sponsored this event, and you allowed what is akin to Nazi imagery to be presented to the victims of the Biolab disaster here in Rockdale. You couldn't simply apologize for it. You had to sit there and try and gaslight the community instead of saying, you know what, instead of doing what Mr. Glaze there did, which was say, you know what, that's our mistake. We'll make sure it doesn't happen again. Because what this has done now is hijacked this. This is no longer about community health. Half of the country is now going to look at this and say, oh, well, this is simply about Marxists wanting to shut down an American company. This is about socialists wanting to end capitalism and bankrupt an American industry. That's how half the country is going to view this now, because you allowed these people to bring their hateful ideology into Rockdale County and put it on full display front and center in front of the media. That is on you, Ifat Walker. You are responsible for that. You can sit there and play the victim and say, no, this wasn't me. I'm not an organizer. That's not my podium. These are my signs. Those aren't my signs. This was your event. You allowed them to be there. You guys invited these communists to the event. You know who they are. You know what they're about. You invited them here. You knew damn well what was going to happen. And yes, I will speak up. They're trying to keep me quiet, but I will speak up because they want to be able to do this unopposed whenever they fucking choose. And I'm not going to stand for it. I'm not going to say, you want me to keep quiet? Don't do these things. Let this be, for once, for the love of God, let this be a community issue. This doesn't need to be a Marxist goddamn march. And that's what they've turned it into, Larry.
Well, Alex, I was invited to speak, and I did ask questions, and about it, right? So, I even asked, I said, I see no other elected officials, and I was told that I was asked to speak because I hadn't officially taken office yet. So, so I said, well, I won't mention the fact that I ran for office or any of that because I was told they wanted to keep political affiliation out of it. So I kept my the fact that I had just been elected to office in Rockdale County. I kept that out of the whole thing that I was planning on doing, right? And I think several other people had mentioned to me that they were told it was going to be a nonpartisan, non-political event. And I do agree with you, right? And I've seen some of the other signs and stuff and this and that, right? And I determine them as free speech signs, right? Some of the other ones you mentioned, right? And
sure,
I did see those signs, and they had that, socialism and libertarian stuff on them, and
the PSL, Party for Socialism.
And I was a little confused about it as to why, when you make a rule and you say it's going to be a non-partisan political event, you have to stick to your rules. And I got a feeling, I think the one person that reached out to you, Alex, I actually think half the people were surprised.
Yeah, I want to say Mr. Glaze didn't reach out to me personally. He posted this in a user group to apologize to the community, and fair play to him for doing it. And I accept him at his word, and I trust that these events won't be politicized again in the future. My issue is with Oz Nesbitt's protege trying to gaslight the community, trying to gaslight me personally.
I think a lot of times this is what happens too, Alex. I think you have these events and they're loose, and I'm going to define them as loosely organized because it was a loosely organized event. It wasn't tightly organized, right? So when you have a loosely organized event, and you've got parameters and rules in place, and you're not too certain who the real organizer is or who's really in charge, then who's going to enforce the parameters that you put in place, right? So I think there becomes part of the issue is you didn't have anyone who was truly there to enforce the parameters of the nonpartisanship that was supposed to have occurred. Now, I will say,
well, I say there was. I say if that Walker was there, Community Action Now, this was put on by Stroud and Community Action. It was her responsibility.
I know you're saying that, but I've also been involved in a lot of things and organized a lot of things, and I've been participated in stuff. And when I say I think things are loosely organized, I don't think the organization was there that one should have been for that event, right? So I think when you don't have that type of organization and control, things can easily get out of hand, and sometimes people don't know how to handle situations or to enforce rules because they don't want to offend people or this or that. But let's just be honest. By enforcing a rule, you're going to offend someone. By not enforcing the rule, you're going to offend someone. So you are not going to get out of offending someone either way. But in my opinion,
I'll tell you what, that murderous ideology offended me. The fact that they had the audacity to put that up against the podium for the media to put their cameras on, yeah, that offended me. Now, I didn't raise a stink there. I didn't say anything there. I packed up my stuff when they rolled out those signs. In fact, I noticed them while the invocation was taking place. I stood there and I waited politely for the invocation to end. Then I packed up my stuff.
Yeah, and
left.
several people left at that point.
Mm-hmm.
They did leave at that point, and several people who were supposed to have spoken, I think, did not come and speak. But you know, and I think that, like I said, I look at this and I'm going to take the Glazer person at their word that I think maybe they didn't know how to handle it once it happened. You know what I mean? And we're taking them back a little bit themselves. Because I mean, I asked the question, you know, and was told nonpartisan, non-political. We didn't really want anybody, and you're asked because you're not holding office yet, right? So I took people at the face value of this is what this event was. And and I'll tell you, when they did their march, I didn't participate in the march. I did my speech, and I stayed and I watched, and I'm gonna be real with you. I did get into it a little bit afterwards with a very liberal member of the press about some things. So
right.
So you know, I mean, you know, but you know, and I told him, and I got into. I mean, he and I had a philosophical discussion about a few things, and he got a little mad. Right? He got a little angry at me. He did apologize for getting angry because he saw I wasn't getting angry. I was not angry when I was speaking. I was just telling him my philosophy, my theory about this, and what would have happened if there would have been other people in charge, right? And so it was very interesting, right? So yeah, I get where you're coming from. And I understand everybody being, and I wasn't pleased with that whole situation either, right? But I made the best of it, and I did ask some questions afterwards, and I did like to see. I did like the thing I seen from Mr. Glacier today, and I agree with you. We now have to see if that's sincere, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't want something like this to divide this community about this biolab thing, because the biolab incident is the most important thing to keep focused on, and the fact that this community needs to rally around.
That's the issue. And that's the issue here, right? Nobody who spoke politicized the issue. But the fact that they're speaking behind, whether it's swastikas, whether it's hammers and sickles, or whether it's the PSL logo, the fact that they're saying it standing behind that detracts from the message. That hijacks the message. And when people watch this on the media and they see that logo, it's going to send. They used this, or whoever that organization is, whoever was there from that organization, they used this not out of some concern for the residents of Rockdale County. They used it as an opportunity to push their horrific, murderous, Marxist agenda on an American company and get them shut down. They're not here out of
it was an opportunity to promote themselves, and I agree 100%.
Absolutely.
But what I don't want to do
to happen
is let it take away attention from what hardworking Rockdale County citizens are actually doing, right?
I agree. I agree. There are Rockdale County, but those hardworking Rockdale citizens need to be very careful what organizations they align themselves with, and don't assume that all community leaders.
Well, I mean, I think moving forward, I think any kind of rally or any kind of event that occurs, it actually needs to be Rockdale County. That one fellow was up there. I've never seen him before in my life. Right.
No, he's
just telling you, right? So a Rockdale County resident should have been the individual at that podium.
Yeah, why are they bringing in Marxists from outside? Why? Seriously, that's a question she needs to answer. Why are they bringing in a Marxist organization from outside of Rockdale to lead this thing? Because that guy in the green shirt was leading this thing.
Well, And like I said, and I think they had their day, Alex, and their day is done. They
Yeah,
they
I hope so.
capitalized on an event, and their day is done. So, and that's the way I look at it, right? So, I won't be participating in any more events, right? Then unless it's
Right.
actual real Rockdale County residents,
Real Rockdale
right?
County
And that
residents, exactly.
no more of this, or I it's going to have to be me and the people I've been working with for a decade in Rockdale County, right? Some people want to
Hmm.
come from outside the county, do their thing, support us. That's fine. You stand in the audience and support us. But Rockdale County residents need to be the people behind the podium. They need to be the people that are behind the scenes. And I think if we, as citizens of Rockdale County, business entrepreneurs of Rockdale County, and residents who have directly been impacted stand together, then that'll happen. And
That's who need to lead this. The people that have
it is
directly been
people who have
impacted.
directly been impacted who need to lead this charge. And I think moving forward, it will be. Uh, I think so. I
Yep,
think it
I
will
hope
be.
so.
And I'm you know
Because this was a slap in the face to the victims. It really was. This wasn't about for this. Maybe listen, for a lot of the people that were there, a lot of the residents, obviously this was about the victims, right? But to the folks that showed up with those signs, this had nothing. This was simply a way to push their Marxist ideology into our community and get an American company shut down. That's it. That was their sole motivation. You know what? Take that shit back to Gainesville.
yeah, I mean I'm Alex, I'm total, right? It's like I think bad job organizing with that stuff happening. And I think that moving forward we learned a lesson, right? We learned a lesson
Hmm.
and we need to learn from it. And I don't think that people who are outside of Rockdale County, there's enough of us who are concerned and enough of us who are not happy with what's going on. We don't need people from outside of Rockdale County organizing, especially we do not need socialist Marxist groups, right? So let
Absolutely.
Rockdale County
Well,
rally around
listen,
Rockdale County.
yeah, there's a place for that. If you want to host a socialist Marxist rally, host a socialist Marxist rally, but make it clear that that's what it is so that we can avoid it, right? If that's what you want to do. But don't host this event and then invite a bunch of socialist Marxists to the event. And I get it. I get it that Mr. Glaze told them, listen, it needs to be nonpartisan. And I get it. They may have slipped the signs in through the back door. But once they do that, the organizers have got to take control and say, this isn't about that. This is about the victims of Biolab. This isn't about your Marxist agenda. This isn't about pushing your ideology in Rockdale County. You came here, if you came here to support the people of Rockdale, that's one thing. But if you came here to force your murderous ideology down our throats, then you can get the hell out. That's what the organizers should have said. If they don't have the guts to do that, that's on them. But I'm not going to sit here and feel guilty for speaking up about it. I'm simply not. She's not going to gaslight me into a position of shame because I'm not ashamed for speaking out about this. She should be ashamed for lying about it. I've been saying gaslighting up until now. She lied. That's not my podium. Yes, it was. Your name is on the flyer. You organized this. You are fully responsible for this. That imagery that was shown to the victims of Biolab, that is on your shoulders. You can either apologize for it and move forward, or you can keep trying to lie your way out of it, and then no one will ever take you seriously, especially when you come begging for votes again the next
And guys,
time.
I want to talk to you about something right now: universal free speech. That's what you've experienced on this show tonight. Universal free speech. I'm not just for government free speech because that's what you're only guaranteed free speech from the government, right? I actually am an advocate of universal free speech, and that's free speech on these outlets like we're on right now, because at any time they can shut us down. Alex, correct? So
Sure,
I don't believe
absolutely.
free speech should be limited just from government entities. I am actually a universal free speech person, and I believe that Alex has the right to make this. And when people try to shut that down, that's wrong. And uh, do I believe the Marxists have a right to their free speech? Yes, but I agree with Alex. You need to do it out in the open and not hijack an event. See, there's a difference, right? I am a proponent of what I refer to as universal free speech, just free speech. I hope one day we can have that. Not in my lifetime, and I think there'll be resistance against that forever. But
Right.
but as long as we've got free speech, then we'll be able to have these conversations. And that's what we go with. So, guys, Alex, I think we've covered enough tonight, don't you think?
Yep.
I think we're
I
good.
think we're good.
So, guys, I'm going to let you guys off tonight. I'm going to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. And I knew the show was going to get exciting toward the end, as I knew we saved this for last because it was a topic worthy of the finale. So thank you guys for joining us. I'll be back next Sunday, same time, same channel, this week from Rockdale. Thank you, and